Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Victoria Smoot. This is my husband, Richard Smoot. And you were introduced to the idea of Sky Temple on Friday. On Friday? No, not that close. And on 8:30, when we were scheduled to speak first, the sun was setting in the west, but 19 degrees north of due west along the Cancer meridian, Cancer ecliptic. So I want to introduce to you the idea of appreciating that we are in Sky Temple. And as the sun was setting, the full moon was rising along a circle that called the ring that rules them all, the golden circle of the sun's path that we call the ecliptic. Now, y'all have phones that you can get apps, free apps for astronomy. A really good one is called Stellarium. Electronic devices. And when you make your medicine wheel, you make it by the four directions. And you can put a rod in the middle to watch the shadow of it by where the sun is. And it's like your lone sundial. The sun's path is called the ecliptic. All the planets in the solar system generally follow that same path, and we can follow it. You can look at any astrological chart, and you can know on the horizon where the planets were, where the sun is, where the moon is. So, when you think of the sun rising, you have the rise, the reach, lunchtime, at sunset, the rest, and the root. That's easier to remember, right? The rise, the reach, the rest, and the root. And the planets that we see always closer to the sun can either set after the sun and then they're evening stars. Mercury can be an evening star, Venus can be an evening star. They're either evening or morning. Or when they're on the other side of the sun, they rise before the sun, and they're called morning stars, Mercury and Venus. In Allegan now, Mars and Venus are, the sun rises over there, it goes across and down and back up again. Rise, reach, rest, root. Venus and Mars are together. And you can set this with a landscape, so you can see if it's above or below the landscape. You can go all around east, west, whatever. Orion with its 3-star belt is in the west right now, opposite, above the horizon. Uranus is on the west horizon. North, Vega, Arcturus, Venus and Mars up above. The Sun and Mercury are together today. And so that's the ring that rules them all. And you can go out to your medicine wheel and look at it for yourself. You can take this to help, but look for them. And you can receive transmissions from these energies, awarenesses. These are wonderful, helpful devices. But when you see an astrological chart, the line that goes across is the horizon. The north is a meridian, and the seasons change the angle of that ecliptic. On March 21st, the sun rises in the east. In the summer, it rises 23 degrees north of that. On the earth, we call it the Tropic of Cancer. In the south, it's called the Tropic of Capricorn. And I'm learning sacred astronomy for astrologers right now, and it's really expanding my reverence and awareness that we are all in this sky temple together. And it adds a depth to the astrological things that we study to know that the form and the function and the meaning are all together. The signs are not the same as the constellations. But the signs are like what David Robeson was explaining. It's a system of 12. And it absolutely works. Because the whole universe, from the macrocosmos to the microcosmos of cells and DNA, sacred geometry is there at work. One of the newest growing branches of astrology right now is called Vibrational Astrology. And it's getting the attention of science because it's evidence-based. And we don't just use the classical aspects of conjunction, sextile, square, trine, but there's quintiles for 5, septiles for 7, and multiples of that when you cast a chart by one of those harmonic charts, by those numbers, you see patterns that show strong purpose energies in the chart. They study very significant people that a lot of people know what they've accomplished, and they find that their vibrational signature speaks so strongly of that soul's purpose and path, and it's getting real attention. And so astrology has many facets and many disciplines and many techniques that we all teach each other. The sidereal and the tropical are not at odds. They're 23 degrees apart in the chart, but the aspects, the relationship between the points, the planets and the points, remain the same both ways. The relationship, the geometry remains the same. So that's a really brief form of the orientation I was going to give you. When you see the moon, you can look at the moon and see in its phases, it's full right now, but in its phases you can see where the sun would be from the moon because it's giving the light that's shown on the moon. And you can tell the relationship between them, but they're all on that ecliptic ring. The ecliptic ring that we talk about when we talk about astrology. And no moment is really a duplicate of the others, but there is a rhythm to it and there is a pattern. The changes that are happening in the structures of society now were very reflective of what was happening during the Reformation and the Renaissance. 5 planets, 3 of which were not seen with telescopes yet. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto were in the same sign going from Capricorn to Aquarius during the Reformation 500 years ago. And the issues that were up at that time are the same ones we have now. The first slave ship was designed and sailed in 1509 from Portugal to Brazil. 500 years later. Human rights. And there's a number of these. Space discovery started happening and going into space 500 years after Magellan was and the explorers were sailing by ships on water. Now we have ships in air. And all these repeated patterns in history are wonderful. If you want to watch a video class in this, came out April of 2020, Richard Tarnas, what is going on. It's a video. And he explains that how all these configurations that are upon us right now are changing every single level of structure on the planet. Every structure is breaking down and will be reconfigured and healed, like Gail's prayer, to be healed so that at the end of the healing you are better. It's worldwide. It is not polarized good and bad. This year there are 2 planets in square aspect to each other 3 times, and I'll talk to you about that after Richard gives his piece. One of them is Saturn. The other one is Uranus, and isn't it interesting? They are the co-rulers of the sign of Aquarius. They're in a square aspect, which people say, oh, that's bad because it's hard. It's a lot of work is what it is. A lot of work is happening this year in February, June, and this is a close date you just heard about. Actually, it's December 24th. They will have their last exact square. All this year we're working on it. So the 2 principles represented by Saturn and Uranus. Let's learn something about it by going back to a story from the Navajos. And I present Richard Smoot.
Hi, everyone. Okay, can you hear me? All right. I thought, Vicky's getting into a very deep subject.
Yeah.
So I thought I would take a break from that and take something rather simple, like the creation myth of the universe. Nice and simple, easy. And the second one is particle wave theory and explaining astrology. Very light subjects. But this is something I do with all my beginning students. I give them 2 stories to read. So you are my students today. You are my beginners. I'm so excited. So this is a children's book. Now, it's available on Amazon. It's been reprinted a few times. It's called How the Stars Fell into the Sky, a Navajo Legend. So this is the dawning of the universe. So I'm going to read this to you. I know you can't see the pictures, but it's a wonderful illustration. The author of the book is Jerry Oughton, Oughton, and so wonderful illustrations in the book. And we'll get a couple. Okay, so here's a picture of a Navajo talking to a man and a woman talking. When the pulse of the first day carried it into the rim of the night, first woman said to first man, "The people need to know the laws. To help them, we must write the laws for all to see." Well, he said to first woman, "Write them in the sand, but the winds will blow them away." Becoming rather impatient, "Write them on the water then," he said, and turning to go, having more important matters on his mind. "But they will disappear the moment I write them on the water," first woman called out. So here's a picture here of all the stars in first woman's blanket. All the stars. Our instructions to get through life. First man turned impatiently and looked at her squatting there on the rim of the night, the blanket of stars at her feet. "Why don't you just write them in the sky? Take your jewels and write them into the sky."
Sky Temple, right?
So she began slowly, one by one, placing her jewels in order in the sky, painstakingly placing them so we today would find our way, so we wouldn't have any questions about life. The first woman was not alone, though. Behind a lowly tree, the coyote crouched. Now, we all know the coyote as being a trickster. Well, let's give him a fair break. Watching her as she crafted her careful mosaic on the blackberry cloth of night, he crept closer. And here's Coyote getting closer to the blanket of stars. Her hands glowed from the warmth of the stars she was touching, and she smiled as she told. "May I help?" said Coyote. First woman began, "Begin here," and she handed him a star. So here's a picture of Coyote getting a star from first woman, blanket woman. Coyote hung the star and stepped back and looked. He hung another and another, but for each star he hung, the woman's blanket held hundreds of thousands more. "This is slow work," he grunted.
Work.
Work. "Writing the laws could take many moons," she said, and beginning humming to herself. "Can't we make this faster? Let's get it done." Probably an Aries, right? Coyote asked. "Why finish?" she answered. "What is there to do next that is half so important as writing the laws for the people to follow?" Well, impatiently, like an Aries, he gathered 2 corners of the first woman's blanket, and before she could stop him, guess what he did? He just threw them up in the sky. He flung the remaining stars, spilling them into disarray, shattering first woman's careful mosaic. First woman leaned far. Well, hello. First woman leaned far into the night and watched the tumbling stars. "What have you done, you foolish animal?" She shrieked at Coyote. He crept away while the first woman wept because there's no undoing what Coyote had done. We're getting to the end here, the climax. As the pulse of the second day brought into being, the people rose and went about their lives, never knowing what the foolish, hasty Coyote had tumbled the stars, never knowing the reason for the confusion that would always dwell among the people. And that's the story. That's the story. Now, that's one myth. You can get this book on Amazon. It's a great children's book. It's one I use for my classes, but it's also one that I give to parents who have a question or people that want just more of an understanding. But a friend of mine, in fact, he's kind of an astro twin. His name is Rick Levine. He has podcasts, and he's, as astrologers, got to do something. And he developed a video, and it is a particle wave theory and how to explain astrology. So it's just a short story. So let me just back up here. Think of your parents. In fact, think of the eons of parents before us. What was going on in the heavens? They are eternally moving. They are eternally moving. Each star has its own vibration. It has its own meaning. And as they move, they create aspects and they create dimensional representations of what is going on at that particular moment. But we as humans live with a wave. So when you were born, it was simply a wave for your parents. It was an event that they created. But when you were born, that wave turned into a particle. It became, and I'm an Aries, and I always loved the concept of the world evolving around me. So, you become that particle. And so for you, that universe has been frozen. Okay? But that's where your life begins. That's where your wave begins. because you will then move through life with all the stars around you, all the heavens around you, oriented you to giving you the pattern that Navajo blanket woman was trying to weave. Now, obviously, things happen, things change, and we call those transits. And as you have your birth chart, which is that particle, as the planets move around the sky, as in a horoscope chart, as they move, they become in relationship or in aspects with the planet that's out there and what's in your sky and what's in your chart. And that creates a dynamic by which you can take advantage of or let go. We are given choices, and it's oftentimes real confusing as to what choice you're going to make, and will it be the right one? And the favorite expression of both Victoria and myself is you're always on time. It's you're pointed out as to what is going on, and it's for you to figure out. Now, in Vedic astrology, in tropical astrologies, which I'm talking about right now, in tropical astrology, we're looking at this planet, this point in life at your time. So it's you on the planet right now. In Indian astrology, in Vedic astrology, they look at the whole spectrum of where you were and where you're going. So it's where are you at on the wheel of time. So yes, it's deeply predictive, but again, your own free will and choice, you'll be making your own fate. So it is fate driven, but you're the creator of that fate. And and then obviously, if you find that you have made a mistake, gee, I learned a lesson. How about that? Let's deal with that and let's move on from something. So those are the two things I just wanted to describe to you as how astrology works from two different perspectives. So Victoria, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Now let's see what's happening this year, 2021. Thank you. Okay, the aspect I talked to you about, Saturn and Uranus, was depicted in this story. First woman was Saturn. She wanted to put the laws in the sky in order. The coyote, the other player, was Uranus, and the chaos that is created from sudden surprises and changes. I've recently found a lecture by Rob Hand, who has translated the classical astrology manuscripts into English so that the new younger astrologies can study it. And he gave a wonderful lecture the year before he formed a group of scholars now called arhatmedia.com, and he gave this talk. It's very meaningful for today. You see, in the philosophy that the chart, this is where growing consciousness of the theme that Mary put into the schedule. Our soul is here to grow. Astrology is a tool. When we are born, we are infused with the spirits of the planets at that moment. They were called daimons, D-A-I-M-O-N or D-A-E-M-O-N. One of the tragedies in history is that the Christians misunderstood that to mean demon. The planets are not demons. They're guardian spirits, daimons. And there is no astrological chart that is bad or evil. They are of the cosmos, they are of the creation, they are divine. And each the moon, all the planets represent things. So right now, we come up with Saturn. Saturn has been in charge the last few years with the aspects going on. The chart has been under the command of Saturn, and structures have been shaken worldwide, all of it under Saturn's. Well, Saturn is divine order, but the thing is, according to Rob Hand, the necessity, the inevitable, comes about as a result of ignorance. And structures, once they're set in form, can represent ignorance. You probably know that it is discipline, order, propriety, but ignorance? You have probably heard my infamous aphorism that Saturn rules the illusion that there is a reality, and Neptune the truth of that there isn't. Saturn is the illusion of a reality. The ignorance is that you think what Saturn is doing is real. Saturn, by its very nature, prevents you from knowing everything. It's surrounded by what we call ring pass not. You can't pass on to the higher wisdom of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. You deal first with the realities, or apparent realities, of Saturn. It is not wholly bad, because I don't think too many of us have the capacity or the desire of knowing everything. The feel that we don't know things means that certain things are going to appear to be inevitable. The more we know, the less there is that is inevitable. The conventional modern astrological viewpoint that self-knowledge will lead you toward enlightenment is absolutely correct. And this is the key. It comes about by knowing alternatives and possibilities. And rulers who had astrologers did not like Saturn. It made them responsible. They called it malefic. Saturn's malefic quality is not that it is painful. Painful is very often constructive. Saturn is the illusion that there is no alternative. And you want to believe that. That is why you go to an astrologer and you ask for your fortune to be told. You want to know what is going to happen. You want the sky that first woman was trying to set up, that you could read the laws clearly and know what they mean. Giving a prediction is the lowest use of astrology. And no matter how much you pay for it, it's the cheapest and the least valuable for your soul. And I've never made that statement before, but that's what I believe. If you have a dream in mind, oh, thank you. If you have a dream in mind, if you have a sense of purpose, an astrologer can help you with the timing because they carry the weather report. It is exactly like a weather report. And things can shift and change, and you can change your mind. You are the co-creator. Never forget that. If an astrologer starts telling you what to do, ask for your money back and leave. Don't become dependent on the astrologer, but learn a little bit. There's many ways to learn how to read your own chart, and then ask for an opinion and a forecast. Whatever it is you want to do, there's an energy to guide it. There's better weather days than not better weather days. Now, we've had a couple of years recently that I would sometimes characterize as a dumpster fire. A dumpster fire. And it's rocked everybody back on their heels. You've been sent to your room, so to speak, to think about who you are and why you're here. People have been coming out with magnificent transformations in their self-awareness. Learning self-awareness is the highest use of astrology. Learning about who you are. When you have planets in your chart, you are not working to achieve those principles where they are. Those are there to show you your lessons and what you have to overcome. It'll show you your talents and your challenges in the chart. And your narrative, your version of that, is so precious to know and be affirmed, even the worst times of your life. And you want an astrologer who will listen to your narrative, because it's your chart, your free will. You're seeking a wider and a deeper understanding of yourself, so you do not have to have the fear of the chaos. Now, pain is often constructive. When you are caught up in problems and you can't cope, that is a Saturn condition. We have been under an extreme Saturn condition. One of the functions of Uranus is that it blows away your reality system so that you can see alternatives. So which one is the bad guy? Which one is the good guy? Is it about bad guys and good guys? No. In classical, they call them beneficent and malefic planets. No. The maleficence and the beneficence is in your attitude. In your attitude. When you understand your narrative and you are listened to and affirmed for your experience, you become free to move on. While Uranus may not always be pleasant, it is very good at presenting alternatives. The Jupiter and Saturn moving together into Aquarius means now we have something to work on. They're square to each other. The square means there's work to do, because so often they are not in agreement. They are not in agreement. But they work, their principles go together. One are structures that need to be broken down, and the other one gives the ideas for building them back up larger, more beautiful, more elegant, more suited to your soul's reason for being here. More to perfection. So these squares became perfect at 3 times this year. One was in February. And the people who responded best to the first square are the cardinal signs. If you have cardinal ascendant, sun, or moon, you just dug right in and started offering solutions and having to change the way we do business and all that stuff under the leadership of the cardinal signs. The next one was in June, and the signs, if you're of prominent mutable signs like Pisces, Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo, they came in and said, yeah, we're all in this together. And we want to adapt and adjust and do it for the community, and we'll adapt, the adaptable signs. And some of them didn't like the rules, and they said, we're going to adapt by putting things back the way they were before. I have news, and that's good news and maybe bad news. We're not going back to an old normal. And what is normal? Things are not going to be the same as they were before. All structures will transmute. All structures will change. Sometimes it'll be like the tarot card with the tower falling down because it was hit by lightning. We've been hit by lightning. The last one will come up on December 24th. And the people who are fixed, Taurus, Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, these, will hold out till the end, and they're going to dig in, and they're going to say, I have the right to keep things the way they are, but they don't have a choice. But they will also be the most powerful builders of the new solutions, the newly healed, the requalified, the resurrected, the more perfect, the more healthy than you were before you were sick ways of doing things. And it's a mess, isn't it? It's really a mess. But you have found your core if you are studying your particular modality of self-healing, self-awareness, personal growth, loving others, right relationships, forgiveness. Forgiveness. Forgiveness does not mean you give up your boundaries. Far from it. Forgiveness gives you the freedom to love from wherever you choose to be in that situation. But it gives you back your integrity. You're not giving yourself away to anger and hostility and fear. That's not a demon. That's an angel. An angel. The moon will rule your moods, will give you psychic impressions. Mercury will give you a way to reframe your words so you can make other people think you know the truth, but you'd rather want to make them think that you're smarter than they are. It's a trickster. My sister was so spiritual and so loving and accepting, but she was also a trickster. She would want to play in cowboys and Indians all the time, except she always made me the Indian until I found out that was cool. There's one thing we used to do and joke about that I'm never going to be able to fulfill. When we went to bed at night, we would start laughing about things and keep our parents awake and make them bang on the wall, because we were laughing so hard. What were we doing? We were imagining and practicing what it would be like to be old ladies together. And so we would practice things like how to get each other out of the back seat of a two-door car. And we killed each other laughing about it. I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. She slipped away. She got out of it. She got out of it. I'm going to have to be clumsy and old and crotchety with bad knees all by myself. God gave me a new one where he's got a new hip. I'm going to get a new knee sometime in the next year. We'll be fine. We're fine. Okay. Have I said enough? Does this give you an idea about astrology that resonates? Do you like this? You can ask your astrologer consultant anything you want. Get one that listens to you. And when you tell your narrative, an astrologer who has already looked at your chart sees it illustrated on the chart and knows where all those planets are moving to and what the weather might be like. And it's like a little GPS. It's your planetary GPS. And they should not tell you what is going to happen. That's at least subject to your free will. Yes. The United States, that's interesting. I've been reading a book on Tecumseh, who had a brother who was a prophet, who gave prophecies. And over the years, this mythology has been created that it was a curse about, presidents that are inaugurated in a year that ends with 0 and includes the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. It comes from the spirituality of the native people, who Tecumseh was trying to unite to resist being taken over and killed and mistreated and migrated to other barren areas. He was trying to consolidate that, and he was a great orator and he was a wise man. So there's a very good book on that now. But what's going to happen is we have another president, but see the mutation has changed. Jupiter and Saturn are no longer in earth signs. They're gone into air signs, but it's not the first Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. The first air sign conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn occurred in 1981 when Atlantis Rising went to Egypt, and I climbed the pyramid with Dean and Mary Hardy, and the Temple of Sakkara was born in air sign. It was in Libra. It was Jupiter and Saturn in Libra. This last December, it occurred. It went back to an earth sign, and earth signs like Saturn, Capricorn, earth sign. It went into Aquarius, and it will stay in Aquarius now for quite a while. It'll be one of the air signs. It might be Aquarius, Gemini, or Libra. And it's about ideas and inspiring from. And your air signs are powerful because with your air sign, you create your belief bubble. Do you know what I mean by a belief bubble? Some people have really small ones, and they don't want anybody poking at it. But you should expand yours and make it not only as big as your family or yourself. Make it bigger. Make it your community. Make it your town. Make it your state. Maybe your country. Maybe the world with its climate problem, with many causes, various causes. Many of them we can do something about. It's about the whole sky temple. So I'm just encouraging you to expand your belief bubble. People, you can tell them the right thing to do, you can demonstrate it, you can prove it, you can send them a statistic, you can send them experts. They will not do anything outside their belief bubble. People do not operate outside their bubble of personal beliefs and laws. That's why First Woman was crying so hard. She could not control the belief bubble anymore. The stars were scattered across the sky.
We can have more questions. I wanted to tell people how to get a hold of us.
Yeah.
Real simple. We have an ongoing website being in development. Just think of Astro Smoot. Astro Smoot at gmail.com or astrosmoot.com. That will go to our website, which is we're still working on that one.
Yeah, we came up with that. We wanted to get it in before that conjunction became exact last December, so we did.
Yeah.
It's up, it's available, talks about what our view of astrology is, where it came from, and how we work, and where to make an appointment with us if you wish.
Are there any other questions for Vicki or myself? It's quiet.
We're going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate this beautiful place, Temple of Sakkara, and the Earth and Sky Temple now, in our next presentation and our closing ceremonies. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is my